What are some practical things that you can do to advance the protection of innocent life? We'll explore that and more on today's edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. He is an author and lecturer, a film producer, and commentator. And now, here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters, your program on life, culture, and the very real battle of ideas that are swirling all around you right now. I have an old friend on, Alban Romberg, I met years ago when he worked for an organization called Center for the Documentation of the American Holocaust. And Alban, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the Center for Documentation has done?
Well, the idea, of course, was to make the public aware that we had a Holocaust in this country, and particularly, of course, in California, killing unborn human beings on a massive scale. And so many people were not aware of it, and there was a particular instance that brought it strikingly into focus, and that was the discovery in a cargo container of something around 16,000 unborn babies' bodies who had been aborted in abortion centers in Los Angeles area.
That's right, and you can see photos of those children, clearly human children, and Alban's documentation of this is critically important, and those children are not to be forgotten. They're still memorialized, and they are buried in the Boyle Heights district of Los Angeles. There was a fight to even bury those children, Alban.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, of course, the proponents of the prenatal murder were very upset that this had come to light, and it's sort of this unwanted revelation. So in response to it, they said that these bodies were, in fact, medical waste. It was sort of something that they, in their mind, just came by the pound or the ton, and they wanted it to be incinerated. They made a point they did not want cremation. They wanted incineration as trash, or medical waste, as they called it. Mm-hmm. And so there was a long, prolonged litigation that extended over about 3 years before the courts, in effect, gave permission for the bodies to be buried. And then they were buried in the Oddfellow Cemetery in Boyle Heights, as you mentioned. Probably one of the largest mass graves, if not the largest, in history. Mm. Approximately 16,500 individual unborn babies' bodies were buried there. There was no marker for quite some time, but subsequently there has been a marker placed there. In fact, the Los Angeles Times recently had a story. The story ran on January 23rd this year that showed a picture and described that particular event quite accurately.
Yes.
It's also described fairly accurately on the Internet with a strange title. It's called the Los Angeles Fetal Disposal Scandal.
Yes.
I guess to some people the scandal was the disposal, as they called it. So.
Yeah, no, this is very important. And again, this is to underscore that Alban has been involved in this fight for life for many years. And I want to really bring around, Alban and I have been talking, we talk about this frequently. And I know I've spoken to many of you listeners individually, and your prayers regarding abortion are very, very important and appreciated. And the fact that you care about what's happening in our nation. But there's a deeper level, and that is the involvement of your government in this. In fact, even in that burial, I know it did have to go to court. There were several members of the civic community that also stepped up on behalf of those children, and there are others who were trying to oppose the burial of these human babies. And it's important that we realize what's happening in the civic realm determines what's happening in the abortion industry. This is not an industry that exists in and of itself in a vacuum. It actually is sponsored by your government. And right now, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has made a commitment, and thankfully it looks like he's going to keep his commitments. He has made a commitment to quit the funding of Planned Parenthood, specifically because of their abortion involvement. And he himself is rather new to the pro-life movement. We see that. But the reality is he's made a commitment to keep the government out in terms of the federal government. But now we have to look at the reality of your community and your state, because it is the government in your state of California, and often in your counties and even in your city government, that Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers are getting your money to do what they're doing. So, Alban, I do want to come back. We've got about 3 minutes right now Could you mention a little bit about what that means here in California? What's happening in California on the funding of abortion?
Well, in California, the state government and the laws that have been put in place almost entirely, of course, by the Democratic Party under their control by Planned Parenthood, which is Planned Parenthood is very much a political organization. There's basically unrestricted funding for abortion in California through the Medi-Cal program. Basically, any person can get an abortion paid for by the taxpayers here without any means testing or without even having a residence testing. So anybody who's in the state and would go to an abortion clinic, in principle, can receive a state-funded abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of this, of course, is California has a very high number of abortions. It's unknown because, of course, they also avoid having a count being made.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 abortions per year are funded by the taxpayers here in California,
Yes.
which is hardly the vision of people talking about safe, legal, and rare.
That's
It's
right.
extremely common.
Yes, and whatever you pay for, you get more of. In California, not only do we have the most abortions because we are, the most populous state, but no, we have the most per capita, double the per capita rate of any other state. And that's because your tax money, your California tax money, goes right into the abortion industry. And if you ignore that fact, you're not going to be able to impact. You won't be able to address what's really happening in the abortion holocaust. You have to recognize it's your government that's doing this. Albin, there's several things that folks can do locally, and we want to get back to that in just a little bit. I just asked folks to hang on, and Albin is going to tell some other stories, very important stories. If you're familiar with what's been happening with the Center for Medical Progress, the very important videos that show just how evil Planned Parenthood is in literally, they know these are human babies. They sell their individual organs. And if that doesn't give you the creeps, then nothing will. We'll be right back in just a moment with Albin Romberg.
You're listening to Life Matters with Brian Johnston. To help others stand against the seduction of medically induced suicide, go to stopassistedsuicide.com. Do you want some basic tools to answer pro-choice arguments? Do the emotional arguments and reasoning of anti-life thinking sometimes frustrate you? California Pro-Life is dedicated to winning California back for life. For more information, go to californiaprolife.org. California Pro-Life Council is the state affiliate of National Right to Life.
Well, you know that Life Matters is about life, culture, and the battle of ideas. In no place is the battle of ideas more evident than in Hollywood, California. I have on with me Bo Bryant. He's the communications director for the Life Fest Film Festival. Hey, Bo.
Hey, Brian. How are you doing?
Great. Hey, tell us about Life Fest, what it is and what happens.
Okay, so Life Fest is the film festival dedicated to showcasing films that affirm the intrinsic worth of human life and the profound significance of each life. So Life Film Fest is based in the heart of the entertainment industry. It's in Hollywood, California, and it takes place every year. So this year, it takes place from May 4th to May 7th, 2017. So that's the first weekend in May. And really what it is, it's about bringing together experienced Hollywood professionals with those just starting out in the industry so that we can really showcase films that affirm life culture, and really engage in the battle of ideas.
Awesome. That is excellent. How can folks get in touch with Life Fest?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to sign up, or if you have a film that you'd like to submit and have it shown there, you can find all of our information at lifefilmfest.com. So that's lifefilmfest.com.
That's Life Film Fest, and we hope to hear more from you, Bo, and Life Film Fest. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Well, welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on life, culture, and the battle of ideas. And if you're not fighting that battle, and again, these ideas sometimes are already in our heads. Our culture is already saying and teaching us things that you have to examine before you accept. You have to examine these thoughts and these words yourself, and then also examine what your friends think and say about these things, because often the words that are used are deceitful. They don't really represent the reality of the action implied. For example, we've talked about terminating a pregnancy. Well, you and I, we all are the result of a terminated pregnancy. When you were born, that pregnancy ended. So that's a phrase that's used to actually hide the specific action that's being done. And the specific action in a human abortion is a child is mercilessly killed. In the womb, that child can feel pain. That child's heart was beating as early as 16 days after conception, and mom may not even have known she was pregnant yet. That's a genuine human being, and that's the same age you were at one time. And we're allowing this now because of our government's involvement. It isn't just that the government has said it's legal. In many places, the government is funding it. President Trump is pointing out that he does not want federal money going to this. But here in California, guess what? Planned Parenthood could care less. Planned Parenthood has elicited commitments from the Democrat leadership in California. And you should know, if you don't know this already, we are a one-party state. The Democrat Party is committed to unlimited abortions. It's now also committed to physician-assisted suicide. That's using medicine to kill a patient, violating 3,000 years of medical ethics. Well, the Democrat Party sponsored that, and it's legal now in California. They are a party committed to using the state and using medicine to kill babies and to kill the vulnerable patients that are now subject to these laws. Back to the funding, Planned Parenthood got a commitment from Governor Brown in the legislature that any federal funds that they lose, your state tax dollars will make up the difference. Albin, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the way the funding occurs, of course, is somewhat unlimited the way it's set up, because if a patient or a person, a victim, let's say, goes to one of these Planned Parenthood centers and wants an abortion, or is duped frequently and persuaded into getting an abortion as being the solution to their situation, the state stands ready to pay for it. And Planned Parenthood, there's very little monitoring. Planned Parenthood can bill for a whole host of services, and they do. This produces a motivation, of course, for Planned Parenthood and other abortion committers to do as many abortions as possible, and to basically encourage also basically market abortions to vulnerable women. That's gone on for ages.
That's right. And what the listener needs to know is that we're talking about the state, that is your government, sponsoring the abortion industry. They don't just pay the guy that has blood on his or her gloves, those plastic gloves that the quote-unquote doctor, the abortionist, wears. Of course, they get a check for killing that baby. But in fact, every aspect of the abortion industry, the advertising, the rent, the PG&E bill, the staffing, that's paid through other avenues with your tax money. So this is an industry that's literally a government-sponsored industry. And when the pro-abortion lobby, or you might hear it on television and radio, oh, we'll get the government out of our lives, my womb, my body. Well, let's start there. Let's get the government out of this entire business. This is a government-sponsored, quote-unquote, social service that its whole purpose is to kill human babies. And if you haven't been following the facts on Planned Parenthood, they have lied. It's documented. They don't do sonograms. They don't have sonogram machines, but they will lie and deceive people. Think about it. If you're willing to kill a human baby, what's a lie? Lies are small things. If you're willing to kill human babies and knowingly do it and then turn around and sell those organs. So you have to be aware that it is the government. If you don't address the government involvement, then you're not going to address what's really happening here in our state. And Albin, you and I last year had a situation where a reporter called in regarding Sacramento and what's happening in the city council of Sacramento, and that was rather stunning. Would you like to mention what happens even in some cities, and this could be happening in your city?
Well, yes, this was frequently there's some similar circumstances where city council members or supervisors, in some cases, each one has a discretionary fund that they can spend on their individual discretion. Usually it's spent for promoting various, sometimes events or similar things that the city council member has a particular personal interest in.
Yeah, boys and girls clubs, sure.
The reporter looked into it and found that every single member of the city council, without exception, was giving a substantial portion of their discretionary funds to one organization, Planned Parenthood. This seemed kind of bizarre, and curious enough, the reporter apparently took quite a while and was very cautious to be sure and verify it. But give credit to this reporter. They did eventually put it on network TV news here. That was true. And some of the city council members didn't want that to be revealed, especially the unanimity of it, that every single council member was contributing from their discretionary funds to Planned Parenthood. It basically shows the almost monopoly that Planned Parenthood has, or control, literally, more than monopoly is probably not the right word, but an incredible control over the Democratic Party. It's even its selection of candidates and its rejection of candidates. Candidates who will not support Planned Parenthood are rejected by the party and really cannot run as a party, certainly not endorsed.
That's right. Not in the Democrat Party.
Generally speaking, they cannot win.
That's right. So let me explain, though, what can be done. And this reporter, again, was truly a good reporter. This was a fund in the city of Sacramento that was not in the budget. So literally, these were discretionary funds that up until that year did not have to be even reported on. So there was no documentation of these funds. Most of these members, I recall, they had either $50,000 or $100,000 they could spend in their particular districts. And then the mayor had double that. As Albin mentioned, it turns out the only organization that had commonality. Planned Parenthood hit every one of these members and got money from them. But this was a secret fund, if you will. It was a secret fund that they knew about. So I'm going to suggest wherever you are, you have a great challenge, but it isn't that difficult. Your city and your county takes your money, and they must publish where that money goes. You have access to that. You and your friends have access to that. It's a public document. You can find out, but this is the challenge. Planned Parenthood is deceitful, and they hide and they misrepresent where those funds go. So there are ways that you can track that down. If you go to CaliforniaProlife.org, you can get some of that information on how to track down what happens in your local community and with your tax funds. At California Pro-Life, we also publish how the state legislature votes on the funding of abortion and the abortion industry. It's only if you hold these folks accountable that you're going to win. That's your money. It's being used to kill human babies. And we do appreciate praying. This is a battle that will require prayer. It's a spiritual battle, but it also requires our work and our involvement. When we come back, I'm going to have Albin kind of wrap up and explain what's on the horizon when it comes to this issue of government involvement and how people can make a difference. Because unless you pay attention to the government being involved, it's your government. And now we have a president who has very bravely stood with you in opposing abortion. Unless you stand where you are, we won't be able to end it. We hope to see the change that we have seen in this nation come to California, where the industry that's killing human babies comes to an end. And this sad chapter in American history can be considered just that, a sad chapter in America's past. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're listening to Life Matters with Brian Johnston. To help others stand against the seduction of medically induced suicide, go to StopAssistedSuicide.com. Do you want some basic tools to answer pro-choice arguments? Do the emotional arguments and reasoning of anti-life thinking sometimes frustrate you? California Pro-Life is dedicated to winning California back for life. For more information, go to CaliforniaProlife.org. California Pro-Life Council is the state affiliate of National Right to Life.
Well, you know that Life Matters is about life, culture, and the battle of ideas. In no place is the battle of ideas more evident than in Hollywood, California. I have on with me Bo Bryans. He's the communications director for the Life Fest Film Festival. Hey, Bo.
Hey, Brian. How are you doing?
Great. Hey, tell us about Life Fest, what it is and what happens.
Okay, so Life Fest is the film festival dedicated to showcasing films that affirm the intrinsic worth of human life and the profound significance of each life. So Life Film Fest is based in the heart of the entertainment industry. It's in Hollywood, California, and it takes place every year. So this year, it takes place from May 4th to May 7th, 2017. So that's the first weekend in May. And really what it is, it's about bringing together experienced Hollywood professionals with those just starting out in the industry so that we can really showcase films that affirm life culture, and really engage in the battle of ideas.
Awesome. That is excellent. How can folks get in touch with Life Fest?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to sign up, or if you have a film that you'd like to submit and have it shown there, you can find all of our information at lifefilmfest.com. So that's lifefilmfest.com.
That's Life Film Fest, and we hope to hear more from you, Bo, and Life Film Fest. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. It's your program on life, culture, and the battle of ideas. I'm talking to Albin Romberg, who has been a longtime warrior on behalf of the unborn and for the cause of life. We're talking about the real culprits. And the real culprits, obviously, are those doing the abortions, are those who are arranging them and marketing those abortions, folks like Planned Parenthood. But where's the money coming from? It's coming from you. That's right. That's your money. And unless you get upset about it, unless you dig down and find out why and how, it's not going to change. And so, Albin, as we talk about what folks can do, there's very practical things. Often we're intimidated by the scope of this, that, it's something that happens in Congress. Well, Congress is now dealing with it. Well, it's something that happens in Sacramento. Well, in Sacramento, it is tough, and we do need your help. This is your state. But this is something you can do locally as well. And Albin, what are some things that folks can do locally, right where they are in San Diego, in Modesto, in Merced? What are things that they can do to really find out what's going on with their tax money?
Well, the main thing they can do is approach personally and in groups their elected representative, whether that's their city council member or their county supervisor or members of the assembly, or the state assembly or state senate, or your congressional representative, and insist that you want to know, as a taxpayer, how much money is going to Planned Parenthood. Now, you'll typically find out that the representative will say that they don't know. Unfortunately, in many cases, they don't know because, in a certain sense, they don't want to know because if they're Democrats, they are constantly endorsing these payments. But as a taxpayer, as a citizen, as a voter, you must insist that you want this. You want some transparency here, as we now call it. You want to know how much money, where it goes, what the votes have been on it, and what the role of this particular elected representative that represents you has had in that. Have they favored it? Have they not favored it? And the first step is to ask them to determine how much money there is. And you must be persistent about this. One way, of course, is to raise it at public hearings, like a city council meeting, or if it's the case of a legislator, they have a town hall. You need to be at the town hall, and you need to raise this question and be insistent, polite but insistent, that you need to know about this, and you want to know what the position is of your elected representative, particularly members of the California Assembly and the California Senate.
Yes. Now, just quickly on that point, if you don't know, you can go to the California Pro-Life Council website. That's californiaprolife.org. It's all spelled out. There's no hyphens, californiaprolife.org. And we publish the record of these legislators. But now, also, it's your local area that you can have the most impact. Very often, you may not realize it, but you may have already met a city council member or a county supervisor. The reason is that these people, when they run for office, they glad hand everybody in the community. They want to get to know people one-on-one, and they want you to remember them in November and to vote for them. Well, we want you to remember them in November, too. Sometimes they might even go to your church. And as Albin has mentioned, sometimes they may not know the details. And if it's only Planned Parenthood and those types of members of the community that are talking to them, those Planned Parenthood types use deceitful language. They imply they're bringing health to the community. They're doing so many good things. And it has to be someone like you that brings up the more difficult questions, the uncomfortable questions. It's not hard. And there's folks in your community that'll help you, but it does have to be done. So we also have questionnaires that we, every election time, make available throughout the state for local elections all the way down to school board level. There are questionnaires when someone's running for office. You can ask them very specific questions about what they're going to do in that position, from school board to city council to supervisor. And those people, one church can change an election. 50 votes in a school district is an election. 50 votes in a city council race, because of the nature of those districts, it changes the whole thing. You have great power locally. And as one politician said, I believe it was Tip O'Neill, but he said all politics is local. You have great power, and if you fail to use it in this most important of all battles, then we're to blame. If we don't use our voice properly, then we are to blame. So it's important to care about the life issues, but it's also important to put your hand to the plow, to make a difference right where you are. That's where you can be most effective. Albin, is there any other aspect of local and state involvement that these folks should know?
Well, as I say, the constituents, that is the people in the locality where a legislator lives and has to win election and re-election, are most important. Mm-hmm. Not only do they have a vote, but they communicate with people, their neighbors and so on, also have a vote, generally mm-hmm. speaking, in the same district. So they have a multiplying effect. If they raise it at their church or their other social organizations among their family, this quickly multiplies, and a politician or elected representative knows that he has to treat them with respect. Mm-hmm. And when they demand information and so on, and make clear that they're going to persist, the politician is going to be sensitive to that, and they can have a real effect locally. That's why local involvement is so important.
That's right. And you have to be insistent. Be polite, but be insistent. Be tenacious, because your enemy is very tenacious. And again, prayers are very important. We are in a spiritual battle. It's a battle of ideas, but ideas that are enforced are called laws. So ideas have consequences, and you must recognize that. You must recognize that aspect of enforcement of ideas, and that's where legislators, elected representatives come in, and your involvement with them comes in. Again, if you want more information on any of the things we've talked about, please go to californiaprolife.org, californiaprolife.org. We're the state affiliate of National Right to Life, and on federal issues, do go to nrlc.org for National Right to Life Committee.org. Albin, thanks so much. I appreciate the battle.
Thank you.
Not only that we're talking about right now, for the many years, though, that you have battled, we're very appreciative, because every life has value. Every life has significance. Every life matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Subscribe to the Life Matters podcast, where we have even more information on this and all the life issues. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. Listen to more Life Matters, Saturdays at 1 p.m. right here on K-Bright.